Hi, my name's Bernard Sheridan. I'd like to welcome you back to Par Breakers Golf Academy, and today we're going to take a look at the swing of Henrik Stenson. Now, there's a few things that Henrik does that essentially I don't want you to do. Okay, so and here's the first one. The first one is very wide stance. So if we look at Henrik's from face on here what we're going to see is where his ankle is, and I always like to draw lines from ankle when I'm looking at face on, because what that tells me is how stacked are his ankles under his hips. Okay, let's make this just a little smaller here. So, and essentially what you can see is that his left ankle is well in front of his left hip. Now, for the average player, it's going to be very difficult for them to not do a lot of swaying in their swing. And Henrik does not have that problem, so he can get away with this. So we're going to get back to that in a moment. But what I want to look at is the down the line, which is on the left here. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a down the line swing plane line here, right on the shaft, which is showing the shaft going in a perfect position right through his belt and out his lower back. That's a real nice position. His shoulders are rounded ever so slightly, but because of his natural athletic ability, he can get away with that. So for us average players, we actually want to have our shoulders back just a little bit as opposed to rounded, and that will stop us from being able to make a full turn if our shoulders are rounded. But he is pretty flexible. He can get away with this. So as he starts back, what I want you to really notice here is that he stays very much on plane, and that his shoulders rotate away as his hands slowly hinge the club. By the time the club gets to be parallel to the ground, with a nice thing about what's going on here is that that club head is very much in front of his hands, because here's his hands. His hands are in front of his center, and the club head is out in front of his hands. So if that club gets behind, usually that means your hands are getting behind. And it has to be back in front by the time it gets to just before impact. So we always want to remember to keep that shaft. If that shaft is on plane, this is a good reference point to check. Is by the time the shaft becomes parallel to the ground, the club head is out in front of your hands still. It's not even with your hands or behind your hands. Okay. So that's something that we definitely want to achieve. So as he goes back up towards the top, he starts to hinge a little bit more upright. And again, by the time he gets to be parallel to the ground, and here's another point that is reason why it's a fundamental of basic dynamic in the golf swing to make everything work as a unit. His gloved hand is still right in front of his core here, which is represented by his buttons, okay, on his shirt. So that, again, by the time your hand is parallel to the ground, you still don't want, or your left arm is parallel to the ground, you want to make sure that it is in front of your core. If we look here to the right, we can see the same exact swing and how again, he is dead center in front of himself by the time that arm gets parallel to the ground, which is really right there. And we can see the start of the hinge that's happening, okay? So as he goes to the top, he continues to turn his shoulders, and then his wrists hinge when his shoulders stop turning, okay? So his arms really don't keep lifting here, and I want you to notice that his arms stop lifting right there. And all that happens here is his wrists hinge a little bit. His arms don't lift a lot more, okay? We can see that here as he goes to the top, that there is that no more lifting, just a little bit of a hinge, okay? I want you to notice too that the width that he builds with his arms away from his body, that his arms don't go inside his back foot line there, okay? They're right on that red line. As he starts back down, and there's the top, so, and that's that wrist hinge that we talked about. So in other words, his arms haven't lifted anymore to get the club back to parallel, okay? Because here it is, there it is, parallel, and now his arms start down and they drop on that line, okay? Here his arms are going to drop straight down, right down that arrowed line. There they go. They're dropping straight down until the shaft becomes on plane. Now the shaft is on plane. Great position. And he's going to drop it right in between those two, stay in parallel, and right into impact. Now, what I want you to notice is just before impact, and if we go over here, which is right there, just before impact, and both of these, they're exact same position, his shoulders are square to the target line, his left hand is directly in front of his core, okay, and he's creating lag between his left arm and the shaft just before impact, and his left hand is almost right directly over the ball right now, okay? So let's get rid of that. Right directly over the ball. I want to make this a little smaller so you can see where the ball is. So the ball's right there. There's the ball, there's his hands. Shaft is behind it, okay? So, as he comes through and makes impact, I want you to notice just at impact, his shoulders are just starting to open up. They're actually slightly open, and his lower body is rotated tremendously, okay? The thing that I want you to notice over here, and we're going to go back to the beginning, is watch his hip is on that white line where the ball is, and it's going to move to that red line on the downswing. Notice how nothing has changed. His core is very stable here at the top, and now his hip is going to kind of clear. He rotates and gets everything stacked over that left ankle. There's where he comes into impact, and everything at impact is very in a straight line over his left side. In other words, his left arm is fully extended, the back of his left wrist is facing the target, his shoulder is right over his left heel, okay, because he's going to rotate around that now. Here again, as he passes through, and we've talked about this again, his hands are directly in front of him, the shaft is still on plane. His head rotates with his body. By the time his hands become parallel to the ground, or the shaft becomes parallel to the ground, should I say, and he's at the 3 o'clock position, his head swivels around. That allows him to get to that full finish and get that shoulder and everything rotating around that left side. Shaft comes out directly on the plane it started down on. After he comes through impact around his body, that means that his hands are again in front of him. And then he gets to a full finish and that toe is up. So these are some of the things that we want to try to put in our swing. And I'd like to thank you for, as always, for stopping by the Par Breakers channel and giving us a chance to help you control your game. My name's Bernard Sheridan, and I'll see you next time, and congratulations to Henrik Stenson on his latest win.